Hello. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Al Parker. I am the artistic associate with the Parsnip Ship, she, her, hers. I am really excited to be hosting this Parsnip Happy Hour in partnership with Broadway Podcast Network. They were very kind to invite us to take part in their town hall, and we merged our events, and it's so exciting to be able to do this and reach more people. This is also a pretty special happy hour from our end, in that this is going to be a conversation between myself, Amara Brady, and Bruce Jones. We're going to kind of talk about anything and everything relating to sexuality in queer spaces and the expression of such, and the active, how active desire kind of drives how we function in these kinds of spaces. So before we get started, I would first just like to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are occupying the unceded lands of the Lenape, Canarsie, and Wampanoag peoples, taken from them by colonizers and imperialists from Europe, who also used stolen labor from African peoples to develop this land. And we acknowledge that these lands are still today being held by force, and we honor every life that has endured in the past and in the present. We also recognize that land acknowledgements are sometimes felt by some Native folks as a kind of performative gesture. And we encourage everyone to take time to think about the legacy of colonization in America and the ways in which we are currently benefiting still from continued colonization and occupation of these lands, and ways to enact decolonization in all systems on all levels. And for anyone looking for a place to start, please check out nativegov.org. That's nativegov.org. They have resources to get you started. And with that, I'd like to bring in my fellow conversationalists, Bruce Jones and Amara Brady, both wonderful, wonderful people. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So exciting to be doing this with y'all. Thank you for being here and taking part and sharing your rich perspectives. Bruce and Amara, I've gotten to work with both of you through Parsnip, and has been really amazing. Both, for anyone who doesn't know, both of these people are extremely talented writers, actors. I think y'all, Bruce, definitely you do film. Amara, you produce. Like you just did Skin Folks, right?
I was the associate producer on Skin Folks.
And Bruce is filming almost as we speak. Both of y'all real busy doing really amazing things. How are you guys, kind of just quick check-in, how are you feeling like in life at the moment? How are you doing?
You want to go first?
This is like, usually this is meant to be like the softball question, to like ease everyone in, but like it's not anymore. It's not. That is a
question. No, I mean, I'm fine. I'm overwhelmed. I think I expressed this to y'all before, that like it feels a bit like my life is like a freight train right now. I did season 1 of this YouTube series that I created with my friend Colby Frederick called Skinny and White Aren't Character Traits. In this paper, I'll explain. And we just wrapped season 1 of that, which was really fun. And then I got a residency with Experimental Bitch Productions. Hi, Emma. We were talking about your play in my check-in last week, because she's also a part of that community. And I'm working on something called Poor Virgin Apocalypse with them, which is a short-form digital series that chronicles a fat Black woman who is trying to create a contingency plan for how to get laid before the end of the world. I also dramaturg a lot, so I'm working on Preston Allen's play for Pride Plays next week. I'm also working with some groups like smaller schools dramaturging their work as well, helping them start looking at the culture of the art they're creating. Like a group is doing Bring It On the musical, and they asked me to come in and talk about cultural appropriation and hip hop, and I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of things, but like things that feel like they're filling me. And eating pizza. I'm gonna eat pizza.
We're all also cheers.
During this.
Cheers.
This is a happy hour. This is a happy hour. Amara you were ready for it. Okay.
It's quick. I'm quick on the draw. Okay, I'm good at improv. Don't read me like this.
Oh, improv. It's improv. Sure.
Oh my
goodness.
Gotcha.
Bruce, how are you?
Thank you so much for asking, Al. So I wish I could say I was as prolific as the two of you, dramaturgs, arts admin, people who are like, I feel like I just admire you both so much. So I'm almost embarrassed to be like, but right now, just to tell anyone that's watching that doesn't already know me, I would say I'm probably an actor first and then a writer. And basically I am currently in the house that I was basically asked to house sit in. And it's like a very old, creepy house. And then a few of my friends decided to come together and we decided to make a movie. And I'm in 100% of it. And it's my first time kind of devising, writing a script, and then kind of jumping right into shooting. And it's like so not in like, I feel like everything is like, what is it, code when you're like, I'm breaking all the kind of like work codes. It's basically kind of been like, we're filming whenever everyone's available. And then I'm basically like, what are we eating at this time? And basically by the kind of the third day, we were like, oh, now we kind of like know what we're doing here. And so now we're wrapping up all the big stuff in the house. I think the story is about a non-binary nanny who is basically assigned to house sit and discovers that they're being watched. And so it's like a psychosexual thriller, horror thriller. And it's like it's kind of like my little like homage to all the kind of like horror ingenues. I felt like I always was like, I feel like I've been in this situation or a scary circumstance like this before, and I've never seen, so it's one of those things that's been, it's so hard to describe because I'm still right in it, so I'm sorry that I can't articulate better about it. But I'm really looking forward to finishing it. I also wrote a play called What We Look Like, recorded on Parsnip Ship. That was during season 3. And I'm still kind of always trying to keep my heart and my arms open to collaborators and being able to bear witness to the really important work and participate in the important work that's happening. And I feel like I'm still kind of, I think one of the major parts of this conversation even today is the way that we are all kind of trying to, I don't want to say find our lanes, but trying to find a way to kind of create a lane. And I think that it's really, really hard to navigate anything that pertains to entertainment business when you kind of don't have the same kind of formula and the same sort of formula that works for other people.
Yeah. No. It's true, and you should say it.
Regardless of training or experience or perspective, there are just simply more obstacles. So I'm like really grateful for the fact that like I just happen to be here and like the opportunity happened to come, and that seems to be what keeps happening. Is I keep getting lucky enough to kind of say how I feel and express how I feel, and then luckily then there's people like Al and then there are people like Amara who are then suddenly now in my life, and it happens so quick when we can keep our hearts open. So I'm really grateful for that. That's where I am. That's where I'm going to stay for right now. I'm going to stay in my gratitude wine space.
I feel like a gratitude plus wine space is like, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, just, at least for the, for right now. And I just, obviously there's a lot of stuff for us all to focus on and think about and cry about. But I think right now, I'm just going to enjoy being here.
Yeah. I'm also very grateful to be in community with y'all. I actually it hadn't dawned on me before like we started chatting about how this was gonna go that y'all didn't know each other. And the energy, it was like lighting a match in like, what's the analogy? Like in gas. It was just like a flame immediately. Fire as in warm, fire as in passion, like not as in like burning a house down. Though if we burn some stuff down, like,
I mean, we don't obviously burn some shit down. If you met me, but like, if it's gas, we don't have a choice.
Wait.
It did kind of feel like an inevitability when y'all started talking at each other. And I mean, you saw me just like taking a couple notes, like, ooh, Push just said something. Ooh, Amara just said something. Ooh, now they're saying something again. Like,
no.
It just felt like a speeding train. It felt like inevitable.
My kooky sister. My kooky sister who literally, what is it? We met, we've all known each other in another life. What did Amara say? We always find each other.
Mm-hmm.
We do. I believe that. I mean, it's not a new thought to me. It's a thing that like a lot of people have said that like you have a community of people around you in different lives. And your lives always intersect some way. In some ways, you're, romantic partners or life partners. Sometimes you come back as like family members. Sometimes you come back as really good friends. I believe that.
I know. And then, like I said, I have an instinct. I know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to cry. Did I say I'm going to end up crying? Okay, so
well, okay. I mean, the topic of the conversation. Let's get to it. Actually, I wanted to start with Brucey said something really interesting about like just now about staying like not in your lane, but kind of like in a place, and not really having like this is the way like you're supposed to do things, and that doesn't always work for people. And that was really like resonant with something we were talking about earlier in preparation for this, that in queer spaces often, and even in theater, where like the whole point is to express your truth, the whole point of a space is to create an environment where you can express like what you need to express, what you need to get out. There are still like rules. There's still even in queer artistic spaces, there's oftentimes like a certain way, sometimes more like concrete, and sometimes it's very unspoken. And especially when it comes to the expression of sexuality, the expression of desire.
All right.
Yeah,
We're getting into it.
Like I really wanted to do this conversation because I am asexual and aromantic, and that is sometimes a tricky thing to navigate. Spaces in general, but like especially queer spaces, where like the point of a queer space sometimes becomes like it's beautiful that like there's an acceptance of like it doesn't matter, but yet it does matter. Like if you're not straight, you have the freedom to express if like who you want to date, who you have a crush on, who you fall in love with, who you want to fuck. Like that is embraced. But like with my situation, just as me personally, I don't have anyone that I want to enact things on or that I want enacted onto me. So it's a kind of an interesting way of just not interacting, which sometimes gets a little tricky when there are rules of like what stories get elevated, what experiences become the focus, what's most. Sometimes it's about what's most like relatable to most people, because like I don't know very many asexual people in my life. I don't know very many aromantic people in my life, like period. And so for people who are creating work and producing work and getting work out there, like the stories that get elevated, the same with like any kind of theater, it's often you see patterns of like what becomes the focus. Y'all have opinions, and I'm just keeping talking. You can jump in.
It's cyclical, and
I just need to let you finish, sister, please.
Everything's cyclical, right? And so we went through this massive period of time where queerness and specifically gayness was shunned from our community, and so now we're in that cycle where it is becoming readily accessible, but it also eclipses every other letter. It was what you were saying earlier, right? Like the white G of it all. And because I think that we see it a lot. The thing that I have always been astonished by in my work and in my work as an actor was how infrequently I saw queer women and lesbian women on stage. Like I can name 2 plays, right? I can name Tanya Barfield's Bright Half-Life, and I can name Stop Kiss. And that's about it. And I remember I saw The Inheritance this last season, and I see your face, and fair. And it was just like, it is always so astonishing to me, even in queer communities, even in gay communities, that like men can exist without having any women in the space, and that men can exist, like their lives can exist in these full imaginative worlds without us. And
in a two-part, what is it, 6 hours? That's 6 hours. You know what I mean? There's a lot of excuses
unless what is it? Yeah. What's the name of the play? Larry Kramer.
Normal Heart.
Thank you, Normal Heart. Unless it's like, if it's specifically about the AIDS epidemic, then there are, butch lesbians coming to the aid of these people who are being decimated by this disease, which is fair. But it's just like we don't exist. And it's really fascinating to me, because when we have conversations about like queerness or gayness, it leaves all of these people out. And like, even on the basest level, they leave women out, and we're never included in their stories. We're never included in their livelihood. They might mention their mom, but normally it's about how much they hate her, because patriarchy.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to respond to Al. What was it you just said? You said you said that I said something before. I think it was about rules.
About not being able to really do things in like a standard way, the way that is working for everyone else. And like,
I would love to speak to that, because personally, I just do. Amara, sister, I hear you. Al, sister, I hear you. And I think the fact is because of all the rules about like what an artist looks like, what a queer person looks like, there is like quite literally, it's like there's no like freedom to move if you aren't like in a one thing. And I think the fact is even now, this movie I'm doing now, it literally feels like I have audacity to even play a person who's like myself.
Yeah.
Because I quite literally, even though I like one of my main jobs is being a nanny, but you would never know that a babysitter existed that wasn't a white girl with blonde hair who's this big. And it's so strange, because I was even when I was writing it, I was literally like crying, because I was like, oh, like no one's gonna believe that I'm a babysitter, like even though it's like I played a babysitter.
But like, this is the ridiculous thing, right? Like,
it's like that's an imaginary rule.
Have been doing the work of raising rich white people's kids forever.
And so like even when I
how does that
so
happen?
Like the idea that like I could I was putting this weird pressure that was created from other people on myself. And then unfortunately, again, when we talk about the rules, I think I can only talk in relation to my own experience, in the sense that what Amara feels, I very much feel, which is that I quite literally cannot stomach another play about queer people with all thin bodies. I can't. There are plays that have existed, and I'm trying to be kind about this. But there are plays that have existed off Broadway for long runs that are about I'm going to say it because y'all probably know what I'm talking about. 3 white gay men, all cis. And the plot is about, I don't know, polyamory or open relationships. It's pretty much the same play over and over again.
There are 12 of them.
And
you gotta be more specific. What? Which show is half of that?
I'll be honest, I did not for a second think you were talking about one specific one. I was like,
okay,
yeah,
even worse, right?
Half of them are white straight,
John,
and half of them are white gays.
But what I'm saying is, and then these very same artists have the nerve to market their work as LGBTQ plus and use the word diverse. I remember, listen, you guys, listen, I remember, Amara, I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to What We Look Like, but truly one of my great achievements. My writing partner, Jonathan, literally saw something in me I did not even see. You know what I mean? It cracked something open in me. But it also really, really hurt me trying to navigate how to market a play that to me was super marketable. But I realized there was a Black, fat, kind of femme core person at the center of it. And not someone who was just
easily consumable.
You know what I mean? It's because I think one thing that's really tough that actually I hope it's okay. I'm going to speak about it and anyone else can chime in on this, but I personally know myself to be a soft person. I don't have mercy on my enemies. Like, I am a hexing witch, right? Like, if you're my enemy, I've got your name in a jar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I think, who I am, I know that a big part of my experience has been that I am sensitive and empathic, and I think that, unfortunately, it just didn't match with people's vision of me that was created by something outside of me. And it was so strange because when I talk to white artists, they quite literally, I think, not everyone even understands the fact that, like, no, you don't get it. There's no way to even start neutral. Like, I literally, in my own writing process, writing a movie based on a circumstance that's a launching point from my own life, thought that wasn't something I could play. And it's like, how I literally, even that experience, that took away from my own experience trying to learn and grow as an artist here. And if it weren't for the fact that I'd surrounded myself with the people that I really trusted, who just like held on to me so I can do the hardest work I'd ever done in my life, I wouldn't have had the experience to grow the way that I have. And same with What We Look Like, the way that Jonathan just held my hand and said, well, the most important thing is that, like, we have to, you know what I mean? And I think what people don't get is, like, some people can't even get to the opportunities with enough steam. We don't even have enough fuel left by the time something comes. And so, of course, it's hard to even try to be perfect and kind of seize the day on opportunities because most of us are exhausted. And I think for me, I like, you know, the only reason I feel like I can even do this is because of the artists that I'm working with now. But in general, I've really needed to just like take a breather. And then I'm so sorry, I know I've been talking a lot, but just I want to talk about what you said about lanes, Al.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're here for.
Because the fact is even an unconventional like career, trying to maintain an unconventional kind of writer, actor kind of career where you try to kind of center yourself if you're not kind of a conventionally beautiful person is like almost, I don't want to say impossible, because I mean, right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and some things that have happened. I mean, if you'd asked me last year if I was filming a movie in a, you know, in a big ski, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to use the word impossible. But the fact is, I do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, the fact is if it weren't for my own kind of thinking truthfully about myself, thinking truthfully about the systems that kind of imprisoned my thinking about myself, I would not have been able to get out of it. The only reason I consider myself even still an artist and an actor and writer is because I know that's my calling. And it's not just like me trying to be in the same talent show as everyone else. I'm trying to express myself. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that some people have a lot more freedom to even express themselves without, you know what I mean? And almost every time I think about making art, I have to think, like, is this going to be something that I can come back from if people don't like it? Because I know for us, it's different. If you are, I want to say just POC, but I'm going to say specifically being Black. If you're Black, and like in my case, I'm Black, fat, queer, dark-skinned, I have acne, my skin is discolored. I saw my fucking myself on the camera and I almost cried because I said, people are going to like hate that they're going to see like this body with these marks on it. But then I went, so what do I do instead? I just don't act? That doesn't make sense either.
No.
So I think that's the thing too, is we have to just let go of the idea that only certain bodies are storytelling bodies. Like, we have to be able to let people do the storytelling. Like, we can't depend on the same things anymore. I'm on.
I mean, it's the idea that neutral has to exist. I think that's a large part of the problem, right? Like, we go to school and you go to movement classes and they tell you that all of the things that are you are the things that give things character. And they're like, you have to start from a neutral place to make a character. And you're like, but I can't. If my body
is neutral
that way, this is my neutral. This is my neutral. Anything I add on to this is my character. Let my neutral exist in its own way. And what does that look like if we reframe this thinking? Like, to your point, I think that like I've had a fucking time like with all of this. By the time I got to New York, I'd already dealt with like my teachers not wanting to cast me and having a very tough conversation with them where I was like, I'm not really interested in being a maid. I'm not really interested in the work that you have dictated that I should do because I am a fat Black woman. So I'm not going to. And they were like, you're great. You're really talented, but you're not going to work if you don't want to do this. And I was like, well, then we got to find another way because this can't be my narrative. And then you get here and like, I think in the first 6 months I was here, I had a casting director look me in my face and say, I don't know why you chose to sing that song. I cast this show regionally all the time and I would have a really hard time casting you. Like, he said this to me, baby me, who's like 22, who's just moved to the city. And it was disheartening. And it consistently got disheartening to the point that like after 2018, like I haven't done a full show that I didn't write since 2018 because people are terrible. And because it's really hard trying to fight not only society, but also the people who look like you, the people who you think are going to be your allies who are not. And they're like, they say things to you and they do things that make you feel like you're wrong. Like, I truly believe that I would not be doing this if I didn't grow up with the family that I have, right? Like, our world, our industry tells us that fat people don't get to be loved on stage and don't get to be loved out loud. The only way I know that that's not true is because I exist. Like, I exist because people love fat Black women, because the women in my family are fat Black women. Like, that's the only way. Like, I'm here because somebody loved May Addy. And I know that shit. And I'm not stupid. Like, I'm here because my dad loves my mom. Like, I am here because I am capable of being loved. And it's just wild to me that, like, I have to fight people to believe this. I'm like, I exist. I know your family ain't all skinny neither, boo. Do you know somebody from your family too?
Who would have thought, Amara, who would have fucking thought that, like, in order to play an accountant, you have to be, like, who made these? This is what I was saying a couple days ago.
Rules.
These are imaginary rules. Like, it's like, even when someone you know what my favorite argument is? I think we didn't get to kind of talk about where we're all from, but I have a lot of family in most of my mom's side is in Alabama. my dad's side is kind of in Texas and in Youngstown, Ohio. So I spent a lot of time in Alabama and Ohio going back and forth. And I remember even the argument that there wouldn't be a Black person in something because it's in the Midwest. And I'm always kind of like,
do you know the Midwest?
Have
you? Do you know your history? Because
I was like,
migration of Black people that happened in the 1960s left most of the Midwestern towns that you think are all white with a whole lot of Black people.
And guess who grew up in a Midwestern town?
Also me. All three of us.
three Midwestern.
To your point, I wrote a show called Grapefruit. It's a one act, and we did a workshop of it like 2 years ago. And I got one of my really beautiful white man friends to do the show with me. He's like ridiculously tall and really brilliant. And I remember talking to my roommate and my good friend at the time, Maya, who would come see the show. And she was like, there were these two white girls sitting in front of me who were really confused when he was your boyfriend. She was like, they were looking, because two of my other friends came to see the show as well, two other actors, and they were sitting in the front row. And she was like, they kept looking at them, waiting on one of them to get up and be the man that was in your show. And when they weren't, they were very confused. I was like, so it was easier for you to believe that like these people sitting in the audience were actually dating me versus the person who's on stage with me? That's wild.
But, Amara, you are giving me, oh my God. How are we, okay, I'm going to say it out loud. I'm experiencing both catharsis and PTSD.
It's always that way.
Like, because I'm telling you, Amara and Al, when we did What We Look Like for like the first time, someone wrote in a comment card that it was like an anti-thin people play.
Good. We need
because I see the idea that you think that a fat person being loved by anyone who is like literally trying to navigate like something so difficult and so scary, and the only thing you can think of is like you don't like that the thin people aren't put in a better light, and it's like no one in the play's perfect, but like really grow up. Like grow up. Like you have to understand that like not like I just couldn't even believe that like just by having this character at the center of this story that suddenly it would be this, you know, and then and it goes along with kind of what we were talking about with lanes before, trying to figure out how to get a play produced, trying to figure out how can I like both be at the center of this, do my work, and feel like that's the right thing. And with What We Look Like, I mean, we just got run around after run around after run around after run around, people talking about how much they love to play, how much they want to and they'd never answer their emails. Or they would, like, there's someone who was connected who was like, at one, you know, all the people that were like kind of referred to us or people, it just, the whole thing was just so, like the whole thing just makes me so angry because I know that some people don't have these, I know producing a play isn't easy, but man, oh man, like the obstacles that come along with trying to produce a play that's not like the, even though it was a perfectly marketable play, it was really just that it wasn't like it just wasn't the same story. It wasn't like one of the 100 plays about 3 white gay guys in a polyamorous relationship who all look the same, and then they're marketing it as they...
The thing is, especially like, it is a marketable story because it is like, it's true. Like that entire story, like the idea that, oh, this is anti-thin, it's like, no, this is reality. And if you think that this is a terrible light for someone, this is how some people live. This is how some people, especially in the queer community, the idea of what other people look like, because what matters is how you are attracted to the people around you. And if you're not attracted to them, then they shouldn't be in your space. Like that is so real. And so like with the idea of producing this play in particular it goes back to like the validity of what stories should exist in the space and like what people should exist in the space. And it comes down so often to aesthetics, which like, yes, art is subjective. Yes, you want to produce and create art that you connect with. But if you can't connect with something that is not like your own personal experience, then why are you in theater? Like, this is a collaborative art. You have to connect with other people. And like so many people say, oh, theater's about empathy. Theater's about empathy. Like, then empathize with something that is not your own lived experience. Like, it's sometimes like, I don't understand sometimes how people don't make that connection to things that they say. Ooh. Like, I didn't get it. I mean, you see it all the time with like white critics, especially. Like, I didn't get it. Well, practice your fucking empathy, please, since you're supposedly so good at it.
So actually, I have TED Talks about this. Jamil Zaki is talking about the lack of empathy, like the decrease of empathy from 1979 to 2009, and I actually think it's really fascinating. You should look at it.
Yes.
The reviews are, I mean, that's its own, oh my God, that's its own, oh my Lord, Nevin, that is literally its own talk too. Like, specifically theater reviews. I'm sorry, usually by white people.
Regina Victor though, because they are doing the work. Like, Regina is over there fucking shit up in Chicago.
Yes, also uplift people who are doing the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this really bizarre thing too, where, I mean, it's about connections between people, and there's often like, there really isn't separating the individual from the art when you're doing a collaborative experience like this. So when pieces like this, like yours, Bruce, are not given the platform and the recognition that it deserves, that's also a reflection about how individuals in the community are being treated. And which goes back to, again, like the thing that kind of started my mind kind of working for the topic for this conversation was how, like, you know, they say it's all about who you know. It's all about who you know. It's all about the connections you make. And if the spaces that you enter, if you enter like a queer artistic space where your body and your experience and your sexuality, whatever that falls under, is not considered the most valid or considered something that is embraced by the majority of the community, how can you gain traction? It's like you were saying earlier, like, it takes so much more effort continually to fight and fight and fight for opportunities. And once you get there, you're tired, which then snowballs again to, I mean, maybe you're so tired and you have a fucking off day on the one day where you finally get that chance. And then it comes back to, oh, well, then it's about merit. Oh, well, it just didn't connect. It just didn't. And really, it's about not having opportunities to fail. Because you only get so few chances, and if you don't land it, nail it, be perfect every time, well, then it's a reflection on you as an artist and on your work ethic and on the quality, when really, like, white people and cis men and straight people fail all the time, but they're given more chances. You need to be like, artists need chances. Like, the whole purpose, like, it's such an organic process. There's no perfect formula. There's no perfect formula to get from A to B to C to this perfect product.
It's so much scarcity. It is so much. Like, I remember, I think it was my second year here when the public did Eve's song, Ian Lloyd's work, and there was one fat Black woman in the show. And I got called in, and it was like every cool fat Black woman you knew in New York City all went in for the same fucking role. It was 20 million of them.
They were all like,
role.
Yep.
And then and I love Ashley B. Kelly. Ashley had booked Bella at Playwrights the season before.
When I saw her, I was like, sister.
I love her.
I love her.
Cool ass Black woman. And I'm also just like, what the fuck you call me in for? Ashley has a Lortel. I just got here. What?
But even then, there's so few. I mean, even she was such a little surprising gift. And then, like, she was so gifted. And even I remember the Bella, the show Bella. And I remember being like, oh, like, I just love seeing, you know what I mean? It was so weird it was my first time. And the thing that was so, like, I don't know like how to articulate this in the best way, but I felt like so proud of her because I knew, you know, at the bottom of my stomach, I knew that I was like, well, she's gonna be you know what I mean? That's one. You know what it means. You know what it means to be the one fat black queer or any. You know what I mean? Fat black people being the lead in a musical that's like, and the character's a romantic lead, and the whole thing was just like, wow. I said, like, man, I wish I hadn't quitted me.
She's not a domestic person. Like, she is somebody. She's a fully fleshed out character who's not serving white people. I saw that show twice. I don't go.
I was shook to my core about that.
I saw that show on the closing matinee, and I was kicking myself for not getting in earlier to see it again. But on the other hand, I saw it at the closing matinee, and that's actually how I met Yvonne, and she eventually led me to the Parsnip Ship. I also
love Kristen. Kirsten is dope. Also, Paolo doing the Chinese cowboy bit. Oh my god, that was my favorite moment.
Can we also talk about the fact that there was an Asian Prince Charming and there wasn't a bunch of racism about it? Like that. And we also just Cinderella with a black Cinderella, Brandy, and Paolo as a prince. He's a prince.
Oh my god.
I mean, that
giving Paolo some love
everything.
Here because
that had everything. Which one of us is there any of us that wasn't influenced by the fucking Brandy Cinderella? We all. I'm sorry.
I haven't met him, but I'll wait.
Also, the reason I was so glad I caught the very last matinee because I did get to meet him afterwards. I wanted to introduce you to him, and
I would have literally been like, "Hello, guys."
I did. I cried about this picture. We met at a party after Bella. I cried.
I would have literally been shocked.
That is actually, honest to God, that is the only time I've actually gotten legitimately flustered meeting someone. And I was so red. And I kind of was like doing the glance. I couldn't really look him in the eye. I mean, that was an experience that I will never forget. And it was only like a couple minutes long, but still one of the highlights of my life. And also, it came about so many good things. Like for me, not connected to the show, came about because of the existence of that show. It put certain people in a space together that led to beautiful things, which is also something that when shows and artists and stories aren't elevated, then the opportunities that come after are also missed, which just makes it even more tragic. Like there's so much lost from the world.
We lose so much when we don't actually get all of the valuable perspectives. I mean, that's the thing I think is really so strange about when we were talking about imaginary rules, is because it's like, why are we dictating anything based on rules that aren't real? And why are we not letting people that, even that show, Bella, this is a great example, kind of a launching off point to talk about kind of what's always missing from theater. Because when we saw that, we had a plump Black woman as the lead who in any other show, and if she hadn't been so gifted and talented and bubbly and beautiful and, we wouldn't have gotten that woman. We would have gotten some small girl with pads. But instead, because that who directed this? Bella? Does anyone remember? I'm only asking because I can't remember right off the top of my head. But thank you.
That was Robert O'Hara, I think.
The point is I was shocked because part of the reason I had to stop doing musical theater was because I could not keep waiting for it to change. You know what I'm saying? And even because I think by the time I kind of officially said, I think I'm out of this, which felt like a crazy idea because I was like, well, I pretty much through, like you said, when we were talking about being exhausted, talking about trying to get the fuel, get the energy to just keep going and trying to figure out how can we express ourselves and be seen. And I think I couldn't keep waiting for it to change, but I also knew I was supposed to be acting. So I was just like, I have to do something. I know I'm supposed to act. But then I feel like so many people have told me that I'm not allowed, or that I can't. And it's not about whether I can or not, or if I'm any good, but it's about the fact that I quite literally had the rules and the obstacles put before me, and by other people like me.
It's also just like we don't have any. I can count on one hand the Black musical theater writers prior to like early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can count on one hand like Mickey Grant, Kirsten Childs, George C. Wolfe, Michael R. Jackson comes in like the mid 2000s. But it's just like who I used to have a joke, and I was like, Ahrens and Flaherty are my favorite Black composers because they were literally the only ones writing about us, aside from the Black people who were like given this modicum of space. But it was like, you know, I made that joke, and people were like, "What are you talking about, Amara?" I was like, "You ain't noticed? They kind of only write shows about Black people up until like Anastasia. You got
that's true.
This is it." And so it's just like, who do we have that's writing for us? Who not only are writing for us, but like are us, right? Like the things that we canonically think about in terms of Black musical theater are typically shows that are not written by Black people. You think about Dreamgirls, you think about Once on This Island, you think about all of these things, and it's something that I've talked about a lot recently with Skinny and White. Somebody left a like basically a little monologue underneath one of the things, and they deleted it after 5 minutes. It was like they wanted to make sure I saw it, and then they wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. I respect that shit. You ain't got the time, sis. I believe you. But the comment was that by my justification, white people should be able to play roles written for Black people.
They always say that.
I know.
Anyone watching, can we PSA? Stop that! Who's watching? Stop it.
It's not the same. But the conversation was essentially like, you should do something from Tina or something from Ain't Too Proud. And we've had this conversation a lot too about the fact that like those shows in particular do so much damage to the body. More damage than most of the other shows that are on Broadway that white people get to do. So even when you are doing like Broadway shows, this is what you have to sacrifice, right? Like people talk about Daniel Watts carrying Adrian up the stairs after closing of Act 1 of Tina, because it is that strenuous. It is that physical. And so like you are asking Black people to literally sacrifice their bodies to entertain you while you're not requiring the same thing. And I'm not saying that 8 shows a week is easy on anybody. What I am saying is that like disproportionately speaking, shows that center around Black experiences and Black lives are historically harder on the body for Black people. And I want to know why. I want to know why the Temps are dancing as hard as they are, because the Temps never dance that hard. Have you ever seen the Temps dance that hard? I haven't.
All these shows, and then don't forget too, again, let's talk about what we were saying before, aesthetics.
You can't. It's not like nobody can do the stuff, so you certainly can't do the stuff.
It's either and they do it on purpose. We know it. They do it on purpose.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. They do it on purpose. So we've actually been talking for almost an hour now. So I do want to bring up that. Yeah, we got a lot to say. We only just got started, it feels like. But I want to bring up, like, this is the reality that we grapple with. So I don't know if there is an answer to this question right now. Like, I just want to put out there kind of like into the universe, what is like ways to reframe these spaces? Because they're so hierarchical. I don't even know the word. There's a hierarchy. And it comes down to, like you said, aesthetics. It comes down to like who's attracted to who, honestly, who knows who likes who. Like sometimes someone just takes an instant dislike to you, and like there's nothing objective about it. There's nothing in merit about it. I mean, it's exactly like, I mean, Bruce, in your play, they just see you and they don't want anything to do with you. So what is a way, and since it's Pride, also thinking, especially in queer spaces, to, especially as like all of us queer Black people, to reframe and like re-engage with spaces to take up room and remain valid in these rooms.
Ooh.
That's not my responsibility. It's just not. Like, I'm not going to fight these people for space. I'm not going to save them. I'm tired of trying to save these people who do not want to be saved. That's your responsibility. Like, and my experience is a little different. We've talked a little bit about this, about like the hypersexualization of Black women specifically in our bodies, but also like the distancing of actual sex from Black women, specifically fat Black women. I see you and I know that I'm supposed to find you attractive, but I do find you attractive, but like it would do something to my spirit if I admitted that I found you attractive and wanted to treat you like a human being. So it's
Amara,
like,
that's the basis of why we started writing What We Look Like. It was literally someone saying something similar to me. It was, I literally once met someone and they said to me, I don't think I'm supposed to be attracted to you.
Yeah. And
I remember being like,
all the time.
And who said that?
Who gets allowed to tell stories. The way people, whether or not people want to have sex with you, affects the way you get allowed to have stories, get to tell stories. It affects your funding models. It affects all of these things. And so like I've gotten to a place now where I am like similar to what you were saying, Bruce, about sending your play around. Like there are so many people who've been like, for the last 3 years of my life since I've been here, oh, you're brilliant, your work is wonderful, you're a great actor, you're a great talent, your writing is great, and nobody wants to support me. Like no organizations, none of these people who work for these organizations want to support me. So like, fuck it. Why am I chasing after you? Why am I chasing after you? Because honestly, truly, everybody told me that if you had a network, your network would support you. Your network would be the group of people who did that for you. And that's a fucking lie. I know most of the people in the New York theater scene. Guess what I don't have? A production, nigga. Like, what? Leave me alone. And so I'm like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The theater treats people like an abusive relationship. And they tell you that this is your family and that this is your community. And it gets to a place where you're like, oh, this is how family treats me. This is how community treats me. And I have to stay here despite whatever I'm experiencing. And I'm not going to do it anymore. So like, fuck them. I'll make my own. And then, you know, somebody said something once and I like wrote them off because I was like, maybe you're just a bad playwright. They were like, they said, it looks like you have to go make it in TV and film before you become a New York playwright. And I was like, maybe you're just a bad playwright. But like, honestly, truly, that there is some merit to that, right? Like, there's merit like this part, like, is it Lauren Gunderson who writes for This Is Us Becca Brunstetter. Like Becca had been writing for New York for a long ass time. And then Becca goes to this.
I saw her thesis. I literally saw her thesis play. Yeah.
You see the cake. You see everybody going like, The Cake by This Is Us writer Becca Brunstetter. And you're like, but she was writing before This Is Us. What? What is this? How do I do this thing? This is so stupid.
But again, there's so much gatekeeping to even those opportunities. It's literally one of those things where whenever someone's like, oh, I'm developing a pilot for Paramount, I'm like, wait, where's that opportunity? How do they, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be evil. I mean that. So many people make it seem like there's no steps between having no productions to being produced on whatever network. And it's like, there's also not enough transparency about the obstacles or the lack of obstacles. Because I think that
you had to make $400,000 a year to be an investor on a Broadway show. And that reframed every fucking thing for me. You have to make $400,000 a year to be an investor on a Broadway show because they want to make sure that you won't come after them if you don't recoup. That is fascinating to me. And that changes so much, right? Like you have to raise $250,000 to mount a Broadway show, essentially. And your investors all have to have at least $400,000. Who do you know who makes $400,000 a year? I don't know anybody.
I'm sure plenty of people have. I'm sure people have those funds.
I don't know.
I don't.
My producing ass don't know them. I don't know them. I ain't met them.
Well,
yeah, it's fascinating how this theater is framed, once again, as, like you said, a family, like a place for diversity, a place to uplift, a place where everyone belongs and everyone's accepted. Like, again, especially queer spaces, this is where everyone's accepted. And yet, no, it's not. And it comes down to, as well, who's got the money, who has the aesthetic, the attraction, who fits the box of like what a person's supposed to look like, what a queer person's supposed to look like, what a Black queer person's supposed to look like. And it just, like, it also spirals even more of, like you said, getting tired and fighting, and constantly searching for these opportunities, because they're not just presenting themselves to you, no matter how many people you meet. The opportunities aren't coming to you, so you have to like put in that extra energy and time and your own personal resources to find these opportunities, and then nail the opportunities. And if you don't, it's fair one. And also, like, it pushes people out then of that community. And so then the community is even less diverse and even less accepting, and even less welcoming, and there are less people like you. And so you can't even like connect with people who do get it. And like, it's a struggle to find people that you can like help each other and support each other, even though like none of us have got $400,000. But like, one thing with Parsnip,
about the fear of like what it looks like, what this new world is going to look like when we get out of here, because who's going to be left? The people who are going to be left are the people who are able to leave New York to go to their family homes, you know, up in Westchester, and can come back without seeing repercussions. And who are we going to lose in this period of time because we don't support people, because we don't pay a livable wage?
I think the only thing that makes me feel like, I think the only thing I have to hold on to most days is me going, well, more impossible things have happened, right? That's kind of what happens. Is I have to literally be like again, right now, this movie I'm doing, pretty much everything about it is something I told I wouldn't be able to do. And then I said, well, I guess they about to see my fat ass on camera. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, I cannot not do my work because of imaginary.
Do not say you're sorry.
Be uncomfortable. We were talking about
you're not saying you're sorry.
With like because I think I told you, like, there's a masturbation scene in it. It's my masturbation scene, and I'm so uncomfortable with it. And I'm like, people are gonna see me, and they're not gonna see anything, but they're gonna see me doing this very private thing that we don't allow fat Black bodies to do. So like, are people going to watch it? Are they going to be disgusted by it? Are they not going to want to watch it after they see that? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially like, I'm not an actor, I'm not a performer, but y'all are. And it's literally your bodies as product when you are acting. And with this frame of, you know, attraction as commodity and sex as commodity, putting your body out there in a sexual situation no longer just becomes art. I mean, it's never just art. There's always something more going on. But this, like you said, this masturbation scene of yours, it's not just art. Like, that every single person's own attraction to your body, which it's your body, but how they want to interact with it, whether they'd have the option or not, like, influences how much value your art holds now.
Yeah.
Like
you quite literally, we have it in the back of our heads. I mean, that is the thing that people don't realize too, is that it is an impediment on our art in a lot of ways. It's an impediment on our.
If it fails, is it because you didn't find me attractive, or because you didn't find me sexy, or because you didn't want me, like, you didn't want me in this way? And would it have succeeded if we had put somebody who looked less like me in the space? Or
I'm literally right.
I don't know. Or is it
and because we don't even exactly, you don't know. It's so, we literally, all the things to kind of navigate. Is it the art? Is it the this? And unfortunately, even in soliciting feedback, I personally know for a fact that not everybody has the range to participate in a conversation about art. And I think there's very few people that I even go to solicit feedback from for that reason, because I know that not everyone is able to let go of their like fat phobic, like, you know what I mean, like kind of lens, because already so many people were so quick to talk about what's believable and what's not, that even in my head, anytime I'm in any story, I'm going, is it believable? Even though I'm literally doing it. And I know other people don't have to think that, but I have to double think, because I go, what are the reasons? I mean, even kind of having to be a kind of a producer body and kind of play this kind of part that is very different from, for a little different from me, but very similar to me. I had to literally say, oh, is anyone going to believe that like I'm a soft-spoken, soft person? And you know what I mean? Because
also,
it's like,
sorry to cut you off, Bruce.
No, Al. No.
I was just going to also name, because we've been talking about this particular subject this entire time, but I just wanted to specifically name intersectionality.
Yeah.
For y'all watching, that, I mean, especially queer, Black, non-binary, femme, like, our bodies are not just existing in one space. We're not just existing in like a POC space or a Black space or a queer space or a thin space. We're interacting with everything at once. There is no just, if you're queer and you reach a certain standard of queer, well then you fit in this space. Well, no, because there are also like, there are racists in queer spaces. There are homophobics in Black spaces. There are people with fat phobia like everywhere. It's in
you don't know who to trust.
That
you don't know who to trust. You don't know who's going to be looking out for you.
You know what?
Because at the end of the
I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about that woman who Usher gave a STI to. She's a fat Black woman, and everybody was like, "It's
I remember that
possible because he wouldn't sleep with you because you're fat." And I think about that a lot. Like this idea that this woman has contracted an STI from this really famous person. And our community, the Black community, who is raised and been built up by like Black women who probably look a lot like her, said that you are not desirable enough for him to have sex with you. So it's impossible that he could give you anything because he wouldn't even touch you. And like that fucks with me a lot. And like having conversations with some of my other non-binary friends, like the conversation about, and I talked to you a little bit earlier about this because there are white women in my acting classes, some of whom go in for roles written for non-binary people. And I'm like, you are not non-binary, but we place on white, thin bodies this title of this is what non-binary looks like. So androgynous looks like outside of this androgyny look of like slender white people, you are not automatically considered non-binary. And I think that fucks us up every time, but I also think it's really fascinating that white is still the default. Like white is the default in character traits, but white is also the physical default when you think of people who you don't know how to name or categorize.
It makes things really confusing. It makes you not even look at what's real because you're looking at what the system has determined is real. When I say the system, I mean various systems of oppression and various systems, like you said, all these things are intersecting. And I think that it literally, I don't think that it makes art better. It clearly doesn't, because when I said there's a play with 3 white, thin gay men who are all in an open relationship, you guys went, which play? So obviously, it doesn't help art. And I'm looking at you, the people right there. You're a mess. You're a mess and you know it. You're a mess and you know it. So if you're one of them, you're a mess for that. And you know it. You know that it's like, you know what I'm talking about. You know what sort of stuff we all see. And if you're doing it, you are participating in it. And you're complicit in it. And I don't feel bad about saying that. I think the fact is it's caused so much hurt having to watch this sort of art that exists again and again and again and again and again. And it's a different formula, a different cycle. And we don't even have the opportunity to even fucking get to, you know what I'm talking about, you guys. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's just, it makes me just like want to, the computer, you know?
What you're saying about being soft, like, is contrary to what I may do in public spaces. I'm a soft person. I am a Pisces in 4 houses. I'm water in 6. I'm nothing but a soft little bitch baby. You like me and I melt.
Pisces are literally the love baby sign anyhow.
Exactly.
So
let me be a love baby. And like I remember doing something and it cast me as like this demon against this white woman. And I was like, I hate that you cast me as the monster in this space. And I know that you did it because of like my physicality and my body and not because of who I am as a person and not because of what I put forth. I was having a conversation with the director and she was like, you know, you at that audition you did, I was getting ingenue vibes. And I was like, yeah, because I'm young and I still believe in love and I'm 25. Even though you look at my body and you see me as like Motormouth Maybelle, that's not who I am. Also, Motormouth Maybelle cannot be played by a 25-year-old black woman. I'm sorry, and I'm gonna fight. This is a hill I will die.
This is like the idea. Well, and I'm so sorry. I just want to say this final thing and then I have to go because I have to go and order lunch and then get ready to run and scream in this house some more.
Where are you?
Oh, where am I?
Yeah, it's 7 p.m.
I'm in my. We said. Oh, where it's.
I said it's 7 p.m.
I know.
Bruce, please tell me you've had lunch.
I haven't yet, but I'm going to after this.
Lunch?
So I just wanted to
dinner.
I haven't had. I'm gonna go do that, and then
we need you in this world. We need you to take care of yourself.
I love you, sister, and I love you. But I just wanted to respond to what you said, Amara. Isn't it so strange that like we don't even get the opportunity? I'm speaking to both of you, but especially you, Amara, because I already feel like already I'm like, that's my sister. She knows what's up. Which is that the idea that like I couldn't even play young when I was 19. The idea that being fat automatically ages you is like so. That concept was always so strange to me. Again, imaginary rules. I was literally 19.
Everyone was also talking about how childhood obesity was like skyrocketing. There's all of these youth who are
which is it?
But yet also but actually
which is it?
Really.
You know what I mean? You guys can't decide.
Are there fat people who are young and can play young characters or not? Like, is this reality or no? It's this construct of what these people want reality to look like because this is the reality that they are attracted to and they reject real reality in order to substitute their own fantasy.
I mean, shout out to Euphoria, I guess.
Wait, who, Maria?
I said shout out to Euphoria. No, I mean, I think the TV has done leaps and bounds for like fat women. Granted, I don't know how I feel about Glee because Amber Riley should have had a larger part in that than Michelle, but I digress.
That whole thing was.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
was its whole thing.
Just like it added to the. I remember being on a call my freshman year. You remember those chat rooms, the like chat roulette? We got paired with a white men from England, and they were like, "What is this? The cast of Glee?" And I was like, because they were like, they thought we were the cast of Glee. Because
but what did you say though?
In my theater class, and it was
what did you say though?
There was one Jewish woman, there was me, I was the one black woman, there were a bunch of other people, and I was just
the
like,
cast of Glee. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Like that is like that becomes the frame of reference for so many people. Amber Riley, and I can't remember Sis's name, who was in Good Luck Charlie, and also was just in the Clark sisters film. But like,
Angela.
Yes,
Angela.
Maybe no, I don't think it was her. I can't.
Which also, I mean, I doubt she's watching this, but Angela Burchett, she's another one of those people who I always saw around, and I said, you know what? I'd love to see a big girl working. I can't help it. I love to see a big girl working. If I see a big girl working, I'm like, sister, and also, who's your agent?
That does you say who's your agent, kind of joking, but also like people who gain a certain level of success and recognition, like, giving a helping hand to people coming up after them. Like there is ways
the whole
in which
conversation with the agents is, do we have the Black people who look like you on our roster? Because if we have somebody on there, then we're either gonna put you on our roster and shelf you so that our other person has a better chance, or we're not gonna sign you at all or consider signing you because
if there's one already.
Yeah. And like I think that I've had conversations, and the conversation has been that like people my age don't act the way I do, which I'm grateful for. Like that makes me a little bit unique. But it also is just like they'll still be like, even if you act differently than XYZ person that we have on the roster, you still look too much like her, so we can't sign you.
I remember, and this, I'm so sorry, and I keep saying, and then now I'm gonna go, but when we all finally get, when we all
you're still here.
When we all get to hang out, you're gonna literally be like, please stop starting stories. You have to finish. So what I'm trying to say is,
y'all, when they let us out, when we realize that it's actually safe to go out, we just have a party. Just a bunch of Black people, just a bunch of queer people, just have a fucking party.
Dream. I'm going to talk about this thing that happened to me because this is specifically around representation, and I think that this is something that, if it's on here, I want it on record because this is something that really, really, really confused and hurt me. So I did this show back in 2013, and it was honestly, and like I said, in musical theater, it was not the easiest thing in the world for me. But the couple of things I did book every now and again were some of those things were great. And one was a production of Michael John LaCusa's show, Marie Christine. I don't know if you guys have listened, or it was one of the first things I watched at the archives. And I remember it was one of the first albums I bought with the debit card. And I remember I'd always wanted to play this part that Darius had sung. And I remember that was the first time I'd heard anyone that sort of sounded like me at that time. And I remember during this show, there were also Christy Hall, who's down there. She's got a fucking sick voice. She's like this, anyway, she was in the show. So she was there. She can probably confirm if she's still here when I leave. But we were doing the show. This is a cast of 28, mostly people of color. And I remember that was when I started to realize that, maybe there was going to be kind of a lot of, even the gay guys in that show, everything was about bodies. Everyone was talking about someone's body, talking about someone being fat, someone not being fat, someone trying to lose weight. Our director himself, I think, was someone who was on a weight loss journey. And, I've defriended him, but I found out later that during my experience working on that show, even though I was so grateful to be there, I was so green, all I did was say, I'm so happy to be here, And I even wrote this director this letter where I was like, thank you so much for casting me, thank you for all this stuff. And then I was thinking, obviously there was little stuff in the process, and I'm not someone who, I don't think I'm difficult, but I am someone who asks the questions, right? As an actor, I'm the one to say, can you know what I mean? I like talking through stuff. Mm-hmm. And at one point I was asked to put on a mask during one big scene for me, and I couldn't see and I couldn't really quite breathe. And I was told to just put it on anyway. And I said, I'd rather not, but I'll do what you asked me. I do the thing. He comes up to me after, he says that he goes, you were right, we'll cut the mask. Of course, this is when they're taking photos. So of course there's no usable photo of me. This mask is covering my whole face. And then I found out after the fact, even though that situation really made me feel uncomfortable, I still wrote this person a very effusive letter and note. And I found out from someone else later on when we all were coming together, and basically I always felt like when I was trying to get rep, there's two parts to this. I was really heavily trying to get rep at this time because every person I knew in musical theater, it seemed to be the only way. Mm-hmm. And so 3 gals in my cast were so kind, and they said, we're going to tell our manager to look out for you here. And I go, thank you, sisters, And so they come to the show. I think we spoke, and I basically emailed with these 3 references. And not only did I not get an email back, but they said that I was too specific. And I remember being like, how could you reduce the work that I did here to me being too specific when specificity is how we can do this work? you know what I mean? That was the first time I'd ever kind of rehearsed how to walk, how to talk, how to sing, that was like really when I said, oh, I think I can actually act, you know? And so to go from this experience that I was so grateful for, and I feel like constantly expressing gratitude for, to being someone who like someone won't even meet with, even with 3 other people saying, this is someone you need to meet with. And then the double whammy is that director then told someone else in our cast that they would never work with me again. That I was, and I think it was to imply that I was difficult because of the thing with the mask. And I remember that hurt me so badly. And the person that said that was Black. And I'm like, you saw what happened there. So how could you make it no, and like the idea that like this was totally okay and that like I was the one in the wrong, even though I was just an actor asking a question, but I'd apparently been pegged as difficult, even though I'd written a 2-page fucking card. And I'd also been kind of pegged as this person who just was uncastable, even though I was doing the best work of my life at that time. So I think what's really important, and I want to sign off with the message that we can't reduce each other's work or experiences in our pain. And it's like, I mean, that experience really, really shifted something in me, I remember at that time, because I just didn't know who I could trust. I thought maybe this is my punishment for being me. And I'm saying that I think, and I had other experiences similar, but it's so weird because even the way that we all kind of have to navigate this is that you don't have any control on how you're perceived. And for us, sometimes the perception is even harsher. And like the idea that I could walk out of an experience thinking that everything was good and that I was feeling so happy, and that someone walked away from that thinking I was both too difficult to work with for asking questions and nothing came from it. It was like, wow, what am I doing this for? And I think that for me, I guess the sign off for me is that like, I really, really, really hope that if anyone is watching this and they know that they've been perceiving someone who is, if you would call someone who is a Black, fat, queer person difficult for asking you a question and you wouldn't do the same to someone else, to a white, thin woman, you need to start thinking. And you have a lot of work to do. I'm not going to talk to you, but you need to do some, you need to do some inner work.
You can pay me for
exactly. Exactly. And then here are all my cash tags.
I think that to your point, I think that advocating for yourself is the most important thing. 2018 was a really rough year for me. There is a famous Black woman who directed a show that I was in. She left a corset on my dressing station, and as she laced me into it, she said, when you build the body you like, you can dress it how you want, in front of the cast of other skinny white women. And a whole bunch of other shit. And then the second half, yeah, it was bad. It was rough. We'll talk later. We'll talk offline. And then, you know, the second half, I did another show with the director who wrote me a letter that he sent hours after closing that said that in his 15 years of theater, he had never met somebody as disrespectful and unprofessional as me, which was awkward because they had kind of violated their contracts with equity. They weren't really trying to pay us equitably. They were lying to their patrons to get donations. It was a lot.
Oh boy.
And it got to a place where I was like, I had to talk to all of my mentors at that time because he was friends with some of them on Facebook, and I was very concerned. And I was like, you know what? I need to be honest with myself and say that, like, if I felt like I did something wrong, then I would apologize for it. But I didn't feel I did apologize for it. I was younger then, and I probably said something, but I talk a lot, so I don't know what the fuck I said. But I said, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. But the other part of it is that, like, when people decide that you are not the greatest person because you're advocating for yourself, that is that person's work to unlearn and to deal with it. And I truly believe that, like, I am willing to sacrifice working with you if it means that I get to keep my sanity and it means that I get to protect myself. As somebody who consistently speaks of the, like, joys and the necessity of collectivism is not built off of the backs of the weakest members of our community. It's all of us or none of us. And the way you treat everybody is the way you treat the person that you think is the smallest, most minuscule, most insignificant person in the room is the way you treat all of us. And I truly believe that. So, like, so what? Fuck them. don't work with him again. I don't want to work with nobody.
Oh no! I mean, here's the thing. That was years ago. I was kind of just using that as an example of how.
No, I hear you.
I think that there are so many little instances that
it's definitely not like a geared towards you thing. It is.
Oh, I know, sister. I know, sister.
Oh.
Oh, did you freeze there?
Oh no.
Oh no.
The thing that all of us SOS. We back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just think that people are scared to say anything when they're mistreated, and I think that we have to move away from that. Like, fuck these people. We'll make our own. Like, if it doesn't work, if they decide that we are too much or too little or not enough of what they expected or what they want, we make our own. We make our own way. That's the choice.
Woo.
And it's gonna be
Cheers,
a better.
y'all.
Cheers. My drink is already gone.
Mine is too. This is a Sprite.
I don't know if you gals are going to continue the conversation, but I have to leave you. I love you.
Actually, I think is a really great note to end on. Thank y'all so much for
till next time.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack that I hope all of us think more on and have more conversations about, and everyone watching. I do want to everybody take a look. Scrolling on the bottom, please support.
We're in a pandemic. We need give us money.
You can find Bruce Jones on Instagram. Bruce Battles Pink Robots. This is Venmo. Bruce Jones 1. Cash App. Bruce Jones SX. Amara has a link tree on her website and her Instagram. A bunch of stuff going on with her.
Watch my YouTube series.
Yes, that YouTube
I'm going to do that tonight in bed with chocolate.
Skinny and white are not character traits in this paper. I'll explain. Check her out. She's on YouTube. Instagram at Brady Not the Bunch. Venmo Amara-Brady. Cash App Amara Brady, one word. I'm also on Instagram at OKAlParker. I also have a Venmo and Cash App. They're both AlParker09. I keep it simple. So thank you everyone for listening and keeping this conversation going, keeping these thoughts going, interrogating the spaces that we live in and create in. Thank y'all.
Love y'all.
Love.
I love both of you so much.